the emergency resolution number 684. What I think I want to do is to run through, and I'll call roll and make sure everyone can hear and we can hear them. So I'm just going by order of on my screen. If I forget someone, I'll ask at the end. For some reason. Okay, how about let's start from the admin building, the district office.
So in the boardroom, we have Superintendent Kowalski, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Rundle, our Technology Director Andrews Ronzer, our student representatives, both Meghana and Paul are here. You cannot see them because we are practicing social distancing. Deborah, would you like me to introduce the other admin who have Zoomed in?
I think we have just lost her. Oh. Did we lose? Oh, there she is.
I'm present, Erin Battersby.
We also have Dr. Sue-Ann Booby calling in. Our Director of Special Education is on digitally, as well as our Director of Maintenance and Operations, Tony Kuhn, is also on digitally.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why Ty isn't in yet, but he should be in shortly.
Okay. And Maggie Ty, are you hearing and able, can we hear you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And Brian?
I'm here, I can hear you.
Excellent. Tam?
Yes.
And David?
Yep, I can hear everybody.
Okay.
I see that Ty Bergstrom is with us, but he's under the attendees list instead of panelists.
Got it. Okay. You mean the okay. I'm just learning Zoom thing. Okay. So we are here. I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as published.
Second?
Any discussion? We're gonna need to do a roll call vote for voting. So David, indicate yay or nay on approval of the agenda.
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
Maggie Ty?
Yay.
And Tam?
Yay.
And my vote is yay. So motion to establish the agenda. Agenda is established with a vote of 5-0. The one item on the agenda for today is the COVID-19 response resolution 684. Has everyone had an opportunity to review that, the agenda? I'm sorry, the resolution.
Yes.
I will start out with a motion and then we can do a discussion if necessary.
I move that we resolution number 684.
Second.
All right. I will open it up for discussion. Donna, do you want to present this, or because it's a board resolution? How do you want to do this?
I can just give a little background to
Right.
the resolution. This was a resolution that was adapted from the WASDA resolution that we received recently. And so it was formatted, of course, specifically for Mercer Island School District. It does reference our existing emergencies 3432 procedures, as we already have that. For some districts, when they saw this, they might have to be actually adopting that policy, but we already had that policy. So this is just a resolution that acknowledges that policy and the emergency situation based on the COVID-19 and provides guidance of emerging issues related to it. And in discussion with the president, determined that it would be better to move forward with this resolution as soon as possible rather than waiting to a regular scheduled meeting, which we at this time haven't had a determination as to how that meeting may or may not move forward. And with that, I'll let you take a chance to read through any of the specifics.
Maggie, Ty, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a number of questions. I also have just a few little, as always, a few little like grammatical / wording suggestions, but I kind of wanted to hear like a more general discussion first. I guess my biggest question, because maybe my little niggly changes will become moot, but my biggest question is just that since this is such a developing situation right now, you know, I totally understand that this whole resolution is aimed at giving the district more nimbleness and more ability to kind of adapt as they see fit and take immediate action as they see fit. Like it completely makes sense to, for example, waive the need to advertise for bids and go through a competitive bidding process if they just need to, you know, buy more hand sanitizer or whatnot. I get that, but I guess I worry that this resolution may weaken the board's ability to advocate on behalf of the kids and the parents and the families of Mercer Island. Maybe I'm alone in that. I'd be curious to hear what other people's perspective is on that, but it just seems like there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of questions out there in the community, and I feel like parents really want to feel like their representatives that they elected to you know, look out for their interests are as fully engaged in the process as they would usually be. So that's my question, I guess, and just comment if people want to share their initial thoughts.
Okay, what I'm gonna do is just go down the line, and then I will keep doing that. So as other questions arise,
Sure.
After you hear other answers. So Brian, do you have any questions or comments or concerns?
No, I think this was great, and shout out certainly to the team at WASDA for creating this model resolution for us, and Abigail Westbrook, who leads the team at Policy and Legal. They did a great job. I was curious where I could find information. I went to the RCWs and exactly where the board has authority to allow the superintendent to waive, and so I discovered that that's under the 5th resolved statement, and it's in section 6 of RCW 28A 335-190. So in that section right there, the RCW itself provides our board, the authority to waive this. And it wouldn't be for small purchases per se, but it specifically deals to purchases between $40,000 and $75,000 and over $75,000. So it's more than hand sanitizer or anything like that. It's big things that would need to happen if we had to convert buildings or facilities in order to manage triage beds or something like that. And certainly the board still retains authority over many things. That's covered in the resolved. And with that we recognize that we've gone through and double checked all this stuff. But that this is really giving the option to open or close quickly and all throughout the guidance of OSPI. It's understanding that our superintendent is receiving updates from OSPI and from the governor and the Department of Health. And so this resolution really pertains, I believe, to those situations that need quick action under their guidance. I believe that it still provides for updates to the board and regular meetings with the board for consultation, and that's provided in here under the 6th, be it further resolved, that the superintendent will consult with the board as feasible and appropriate and in a timely report. So, you know, I'm all for this. I think it is unprecedented times, and we need to provide Superintendent Kolosky and her staff the ability to direct staff where needed, because work has changed, as has been said. Everyone continues to work. That work is just different now. And will allow them to be nimble in how they are able to provide supplemental services and all of that throughout the district as provisions are created. So I support this.
Thank you very much for those explanations. David, questions, concerns, comments?
Yeah, I also wonder the same things Maggie Tai did. I guess it's a closure. Closure means many things, and how do we define that? Is that a closure of facilities? Is it a shutdown of the school district? How does that correlate to continuing education needs? I also appreciate that the superintendent has power to change staff assignments and determine who can come into work and who needs to be reassigned and such. Is there any updates to the board as to when and what is being done around that? What are the communication requirements as these as this authority is being exercised? I guess would be another piece to ask about. And then I guess the final piece would be, I appreciate Brian's clarifications, and does the superintendent view it the same way as well? So those would be the three. Thank you.
Okay. Tam, questions, concerns?
Yes, thank you. So I'm not going to raise any questions that has already been mentioned by Maggie Tai or David. I share similar sentiments, and so I'll raise some maybe other questions I have. So I guess usually when these resolution happens, they usually happen before we decide whether we have school closure or not. And so even though we're in a crisis, it's really, like I mentioned, a slow burning crisis that we're actually all at home right now. And we are, so I guess, you know, so what's the need for this now per se, versus it would have been, I can see it more relevant to when we were in this kind of touchy and go kind of situation. I also want to know, is this recommended by WASDA as a whole to everybody? And is everyone adopting this, or is it per school district adopting this? And I actually really appreciate Brian's, the fact that you clarify that it is for these very specific items. And similar to David, I wanted to know whether this is something that the administration see as well. And because we adopted this from WASDA, I'm not going to point, it's not going to be, you know, it's really not anyone's fault, but I would say I am, you know, I guess consistently disappointed through our larger systems and everywhere that throughout this whole process that we still don't reaffirm that what is really our commitment to our students from an education perspective, given the situation. I think that we are providing so much additional services, which is true and is needed. But I think that within all of that, it is still guided by our, really the purpose of our job, and which is to, during this time, as much as possible, provide as much education as possible. And I don't see these things mentioned in here. And finally, I feel that during this time, when it is a situation like this, everybody's impacted. And I actually feel that we should be working more collaboratively together I feel that I want to give the administration power to be nimble and reactive to what we need in the areas of buying equipment and buying, instructional material, whatever that we need to sustain or to further our goals. But during this time, it is really important that the school board is working alongside the administration and to really accept the responsibility and work that needs to be done and move forward together with our community. Regardless of what we do, beyond the whole safety and emergency aspect, but moving forward, our community really needs to be a part of this. Otherwise, no matter what we do, if they don't feel like they've been a part of this, it is really hasn't been successful. And so in certain areas, if it's possible, how can we be intentional about being nimble, but being intentional about really listening to our community's need?
I'm going to just make my comments and then I will hand it back to our administrative team to address some of the concerns that were specific to them. I hear the concerns about including the community and the board. I don't think this emergency resolution in any way interferes with that. The board is getting regular updates from the superintendent in terms of at least major actions that the administrative team is taking. I think it's really important for the board to be asking questions and getting information and not interfering with operations of the district on a daily basis now more than ever. Unless they need board members to come out and actually, prepare and serve food for our families, which I know everyone would be more than happy to do if possible, we need to make sure, it's my opinion, that we make sure that we leave the operations to the administrative team. We all want to be involved. We all care about our students. And when I say we, I mean the entire community. And everyone has their own opinion on what the district should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And as we see in all the emails we've been receiving, it's great that we get those opinions because it lets us and the administrative team get a feel for what the needs are in the community and what the individual's priorities are. But the school district has been directed very specifically in terms of what the priorities are by the governor and by the superintendent of public instruction. And that's the law. They have to follow those in that order because that's what they were instructed to do. I understand everyone is concerned, rightly so, about educating our students. And it's on the list, and we are in day 4 of our school closure. So we have a long way to go. And I think that information will continue to come out. And I imagine that we will get a bit of an update today in terms of what is happening. But I just want everyone to continue to take a breath. And, we're learning that people are safe. There's some people out there that need more help than others, and the administration is hearing that and addressing it. I will let Andrew Eves or Donna or Fred give the update in terms of how we're able to make sure our students are getting lunches and educational material technology so that they can seek out supplemental education from their home. So those are kind of my words of caution and my feeling on this. I think the resolution is very appropriate. I too am grateful for WASDA in preparing this so quickly. I think it is specific enough that it is clear what falls under emergency authorization. I so far have had no concerns with regards to being informed of major decisions being made. And I don't want to see our administrative team, I mean, we get almost daily emails in terms of updates from our superintendent. I at this point, I'm not concerned with getting the updates. That, you know, that could change, but I don't want to burden our administrative team, taking them away from the work that they're doing to have, you know, regular meetings just to be updated, to express our concern. So that's my feeling on that. Certainly we can have emergency meetings at any point. We can have special meetings if we need to, but I think that we should have those when there's a very specific stated purpose to them. So let's go to Donna. Do you want to lead, make any comments, answer any questions, and then you can direct your team in terms of who is answering what question?
Certainly. In fact, actually, just to the pieces on the resolution, answer a couple of questions there. Then we, staff has actually presented a slide deck that has, will be our report to the state superintendent as to the priorities that he has laid out for us. Some things I would note on the resolution is certainly the board's authority is kept intact in this, is how I read this. But I do think it also gives the board some nimbleness as well, particularly with example being the meeting we're able to hold electronically, being able to adjust dates, times, and locations. I was looking for that nimbleness in this. I think that that's important so that we can still communicate and hold meetings when action is needed. So that was an important piece of this resolution that's why I felt there was some urgency to do this. Unfortunately, to Director Din's point, this did come out from WASDA. They were working on it, but we had to make the decision to close. It came almost simultaneously as the governor's directive for schools to close. So everyone's learning as we go through this. Next, I would really like to move to the slide deck, and cabinet staff will jump in and participate as we get to the specifics. This has been all hands on deck. We've all been involved in every part of it, but of course, we've each taken the lead on certain aspects of it. So this is our response plan as of today with regards to COVID-19. And we are putting at the top of this our board policy 1 as we are making decisions as it changes absolutely daily. We received late last night, I want to say it was around 8:30, the latest OSPI update from the state superintendent's office, which was then somewhat addressed in a conference call this morning. All of the answers were not there, but we continue to work through updates on that daily as we confer with our colleagues in other districts. So just a reminder of our board policy 1. So the current priorities from OSPI are really laid out very clearly. The state superintendent has not veered from this. Some of this came from the governor's office as well, which really was concerns when the superintendents were on a Zoom call with the governor to say, here's some of our concerns as you do this massive closure of schools. Many of our students across the state rely on our food service for their meals. So we have all been tasked with building a nutrition plan that continues to serve the youth in our school district. The next one is childcare, and the priority, we'll explain a little bit about that one, but that was another specific from the governor. Thirdly, graduation, particularly for our seniors, and making sure that graduation credits are taken care of, and what does that look like. Next is our employees, and then teaching and learning. So we're gonna walk through each of those. Ty and I have been taking the lead on nutrition. Our director of food service, who is actually works through our contractor Chartwells, cannot speak highly enough about Carol Buss. She has done an amazing job and got up the first day on Monday and served more than 150 lunches on the first day. We have to ensure that 0 through 18-year-old children and students on the island are aware of this free lunch option. And so we are working with as many community as we can to get that message out. And we are following also guidelines from public health, which has been very clear on, although that picture doesn't show it, these are bagged lunches that are kind of the grab and go model. Again, everything is being cognizant of how do we not spread this virus, and how do we support all of the efforts to the virus. So that's where we are with our nutrition program at this time. We could take questions on that now. Ty, do you have anything to add before we open it for questions?
Just that we've had a overwhelming positive response from the community to Carol's ability to produce lunches. She's actually serving not just bag lunches, they're not brown bag lunches, they're actual meals. Yesterday was cheeseburgers. So she is going above and beyond what the basic requirement is to serve these families. And it's just great response. People are incredibly thankful and appreciative of the service.
And as you can see, we're distributing at 2 locations. So South and North End, trying to address family needs in both parts of our community, making it as convenient as we can. Do we want, Deborah, would you like to do questions after each priority or wait till the end?
I think that probably makes sense. Does anyone, since I can see everyone, why don't you just, instead of going through, well, Maggie, Ty, do you have any questions about lunches?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
How many free lunches do we typically serve in a day district wide? Do you know, Ty?
It's usually about 120.
Oh, okay.
Our free reduced lunch population during our average school year is about 120, 130. So we're up a little bit, but most likely it's the younger siblings or their older siblings. The high school is not part of the traditional national school lunch program. Chartwells picks up the cost of free reduced students as part of their contract with us at the high school. So the additional numbers could represent high school students as well.
That's great. So it sounds like we're more than meeting the needs that exist. So fantastic.
Yep.
All right, Brian?
I'm good, thank you.
David?
No questions.
Tam?
I do have a couple of questions. So where are, because I know that this is for all students, 18 and under. So where is the funding to provide these free lunches?
So we're operating on what's called the summer feed program. It's a, excuse me, my allergies are, the summer feed program. It's a FDA sponsored program through the Food and Drug Administration, who was the governing authority over the National School Lunch Program. We haven't traditionally in the past run the summer feed, but as we've entering this brave new world, we've amended our contract with Chartwells with OSPI's blessing to make this possible. When we do the summer feed, we take a tally of all the lunches that are served each day, and on a monthly basis, we'll submit a report to the state through OSPI, and will be reimbursed directly for each meal that is served. So it's about a 1-to-1 cost reimbursement for the meals.
So we will be reimbursed for all the meals
Yes.
we serve beyond those who need it before.
Yes.
So then, just like, I know that even though financially parents may be able to manage their food, monthly during lunch, but during this time, it is, I know, stressful for a lot of parents who have to manage multiple things to also take care of lunches. And so as we are rolling out this program, I hope we are thinking about how to make sure that we can provide for more folks and beyond those who are able to come pick up lunches for their kids, because this is really may not be as feasible for two parents working families. And so just expanding the type of folks that we help.
It was imperative that we were able to start service immediately. We were able to get out food service a lot faster than other districts around us because we had started the planning before we actually closed. So we've been able to kind of get ahead of several districts in terms of being able to serve the population. And what this does now is it allows us to take a look at how do we get more youth, the 18 to 0 or 0 to 18 population fed. And as time goes on and belts get a little tighter, I'm anticipating we'll probably see increased numbers. And there's a possibility that we may expand to breakfast options. The summer feed program allows districts to provide a breakfast for the next day. So when you get your lunch, it would not include the lunch for this day, but also breakfast for the next morning, the following morning. So we can take a look at that. Other districts are using transportation drivers to deliver to specific points on bus routes. And based on the number of families that ask for food, we are not required to make people ask, but we do ask people to pre-order so that we have some type of estimate as to what because we only get reimbursed for the meals that are actually served. So we have the ability now, once we have this really kicked off, to start looking at, can we expand it? Can we get more kids in? How are we helping?
Yeah, this is very reassuring. Thank you, Ty.
Yep.
Has there been any concern about any kids that are unable to get to the pickup points?
We haven't heard anything about that yet.
Okay, and I assume that there'll be accommodations made if you hear from anyone that needs assistance in that way.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that the community can do in terms of assisting with our nutritional program?
Spread the word. Spread the word. We're here to help the community. We're here to provide services to the youth and families and to help ease that concern. We're here to feed your kids. No kid will go without a meal.
I have a question, just sort of continuing on from Deborah's question. I've had parents ask me if they would be able to pay for their kids to get a regular school lunch, because some kids at home are trying to kind of stick to like the daily school schedule, and it would be kind of like a nice point of normalcy for them, as well as if the parents are working at home. It's a little bit hard when you're in the middle of a conference call to take time out to make, mac and cheese. And so that's a question that I think you'll probably be getting more and more as this program gets established. Can people make a donation and be part of this, or will that just complicate the finances of this program because of how it's funded?
No donations are required. You do not have to be free or reduced to get a meal. All we ask is that you submit a pre-order. We will not turn anyone away if they show up unannounced or without a pre-order, but we ask that we do have, because it just eases the ability of us to plan, or Carol's and her team's ability to plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if families want that sense of normalcy by getting a lunch meal, go ahead and order.
Okay.
Additionally, one thing that we do have to note, though, is that we cannot have congregate meals or where people sit together.
Sure.
It's not an option. You have to take it and go.
Yeah. Thanks.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm nodding.
No, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the team there in administration and also to Carol Buss and Chartwells for being really agile and getting these services out to our families. It's so important. And I want to make sure that they hear thank you for all the hard work that they're doing.
Any other questions or comments regarding our nutrition program? Okay, Donna, back to you.
So next we're going to talk about childcare, and before I get too far into this, I want to remind everyone that this is really technically day 4 of our school closures. So just a reminder that when the governor and the superintendent of public instruction did the first press conference, they really talked about this week as being the pause. They referred to it as spring break, where staff and the teams would take this time to really work on what these priorities are that they have set out. So we are on day 4 and really proud to say that the first priority, we feel like we can check that box. Our nutrition program is up and serving kids, and we hope that the message will continue to get out into the community. We do ask that, again, you do that pre-order because the reimbursement does just come for the meals that we actually serve. We have a few extras, but we want to make sure that kids get their lunch, and if it's built into a family schedule, come and grab and go at IMS or at the high school. The next priority that the governor and state superintendent tasked us with and mandated is childcare. This one is very different in that there have been some real specifics as to what this should look like. It's mandated that school districts provide kindergarten through 5th grade childcare, and specifically as a means of last resort for our healthcare providers and first responders. The governor was very clear that in this crisis, in this health crisis, we cannot and do not want to pull our healthcare providers out of a system where they are supporting those who have contracted this virus. And so tasking us with providing that childcare. As this has happened very rapidly, we have received some, but not the full requirements from public health and DCYF on what the regulations are going to be in light of the virus and how do we help the control of spreading the virus. What we know today, and again, we were on a superintendent conference call again this morning, and we're reassured that we would be receiving sometime today. Our experience has been that sometime today is usually about 8 or 8:30 at night, that we'll receive what the specifics of the regulations are right now as we know them. Only 50 per site and location. And so we have already put out a request for childcare with verification to kind of gauge what those numbers are. The other numbers piece we've been given is that it's a total of 10 in a room, where it wasn't specifically saying a 9-to-1, but in our mind, we need at least 1 adult in that room, depending on the age of the children. It might be 2. So we have to consider that total of 10, and then of course keeping in mind that 50 at the site. The other piece that will be implemented is well checks of children and staff who are participating will occur daily. That will look like a temperature check as students come in the morning, and then a question check of the parents and adults who come to pick the children up at the end of the day. Again, we have a team that includes a lot of staff right now, all of our elementary admin team, along with Kai and myself and other staff members who jumped in to support in getting this ready to, as best we can, have it up on Monday. Just some details for the board. We are looking at Northwood as the location, easy access, easy cleaning, because of course the stringent of the cleaning requirements is going to be there. And then this childcare will also have lunches available. We'll ask of the same request of please sign up for it, so our food service will know how many and what to deliver to the childcare as well. Any questions or any other additions, Ty, that I missed? I know you were on a conference call with a group in the planning process on this.
Just as of this morning, we've had about 19 families respond to the survey, with about 28 children that are going to be registered initially. So we do have families that are in need and looking to use the service. We are working as quickly as possible to essentially kind of pivot away from the known world of instruction and supervision into something completely different. And so I just want to thank the administrative team for the work that they're putting in. The nurses are putting together containment protocols and well-check protocols and questionnaires and cleaning protocols for the staff to use. We are taking things very serious. We had a conversation this morning about kind of how do we convey the seriousness of certain infractions, like what happens if a student licks another student's neck? That was a real case that happened in one of our elementaries before we went on break. And how do we pivot that kind of conversation? So, and explain that's not appropriate behavior to parents, beyond even more than what it used to be. But we are looking at it very closely. We've managed to secure resources in terms of scheduling and guidelines and handbooks and manuals from other programs that are run by districts and community centers in the region. And we're looking to see what we can integrate from those. We're also putting together a training program for the staff that will be responsible for the care and running the facility. So we're trying to get that up and running hopefully by tomorrow.
And to Ty's point, one of the big challenges that we talked about with this is the public health recommendations and guidelines do continue to talk about enforcing social distancing. And from my perspective, someone who's taught young children many years ago, but asking 5- and 6-year-olds to, and frankly, even adolescents, and I'm looking at our student representatives, even adolescents to maintain that recommended 6-foot distance is going to be a very interesting challenge that will take some creative moves to implement in a child care setting. But that's the low numbers in each of the regions. Any questions on childcare?
Is the administrative team having any trouble getting staff to be available for this program?
I'm going to ask Erin Battersby to weigh in on that one. We do have a section that is going to be about staff. Mike had answered then, but Erin, can you jump in that?
Yeah, so essentially, we've been working together with the MIEA to try to define what work looks like in this post-closure world. And that really does necessitate some detailed considerations. We will not be asking those who are in high-risk groups to be taking on the role of child care providers. But we are negotiating sort of what does that look like, who gets assigned, and what will their task exactly be, because as Ty sort of emphasizes, it's very different work than fits within their normal job description. So that's something that we have to come to an agreement on with the union. So in terms of getting staff, I think by and large, our staff are they're sad to be away from their students, right? They care as much about our students as, you know, our community does. And they're willing to help. They're just trying to make sure that they can help in a way that is safe and that is meaningful. They're very concerned that they don't have, you know, the childcare expertise, which is where getting resources from outside entities is really critical, because childcare and teaching geometry, very different. So that's sort of a long-winded answer to say that I think we're getting there, but we are concerned about staff shortage, because as this continues, sort of what is our available pool, who don't fit in the compromised category and who are not themselves ill.
So to tag on to what Erin was saying, staff availability, we are going to open with a limit of 50. And then we will work with, we will collaborate with other entities. We had a good conversation with our Boys and Girls Club here on Mercer Island yesterday, late yesterday, Ty and I did. And we discussed these parameters of the 50 per site, the 10 per room, and how we could work to really make sure that the priority of healthcare providers and first responders is who are being served first as a priority. That is what we have been mandated. So initially we are going to start with that 50 number at Northwood. And of course, we will work with Boys and Girls Club. And if the number starts to grow and we have then created a waiting list, over time, we may have to look at opening a second facility. But again, some of that does become based on staffing availability, because the governor and the state superintendent have also very clearly defined what are the at-risk groups that are being asked to work remotely versus working with children. And we do know, as all districts in our region have, that's a concern. The same staffing concern is what has also caused our usual before and after school care provider that does our elementary schools. We approached them initially for assistance and help in this. They serve more than our district, and staffing and legal requirements have really been a huge barrier for them. They initially have told us they will not be able to serve us, even in their ongoing capacity of that before and after school time. We continue to talk with them and see how we can partner, but at this time, that was their concern as well, is not having enough staff to fulfill these very stringent requirements.
Are there set hours planned for this care?
The hours that we've been, districts around us have had a pretty wide range of hours. The hours that we're looking at providing service are from 7:30 to 4:30. We heard from one of the local hospital CEOs said that if we could provide service during regular school hours at the minimum, that would be enough for his group. But we're looking to expand that just a little bit to provide a few additional hours that would be available. So right now, the answer is 7:30 to 4:30.
Okay. And if we have a child with that has special needs that needs more specific care, meaning whether it's one-on-one or a smaller group than the norm, is that something that the district is able to provide?
So this is Erin's. The answer to that is we will try to provide that, and it's our intent to provide that for students in need, but it will If we cannot provide the staffing necessary to make a student safe, then we are not a viable option for childcare. At the end of the day, student safety is the #1 priority, and we just have to be sensitive to our staffing and our ability to staff. So our intent is to do that. Our goal is to do that, and to do that on an ongoing basis. But for example, if there's a student that requires a nurse on site and for some reason all our nurses are not available, unfortunately on that day, that child will not be able to come.
I have one more question and I'll pass it on. I know that we're going to hear responses from our community who have, middle, high school students or even parents that want to be approached to volunteer if it's needed. Is there, I know you're looking to staff first. Is there any sort of list that's happening that the district can then reach out to if that's needed?
I'm going to let Ty weigh in from the risk management side on that question, and then I will share a model that we briefly heard about today that we are considering as an option. So Ty, why don't you discuss from the risk management use of volunteers? I'm assuming, Deborah, you mean within the facility itself.
Well, within the facility itself, but then also, with our online groups, there's been offers for childcare. And so whether it's, yes, it's the formal childcare situation, but also if there's a way that the district can help connect appropriate families with volunteers if the district can't provide what they need specifically.
So Ty's going to do the first part and then I'll do the second part.
Okay.
All right. For volunteers, whenever we have volunteers in the building, we need to have them background checked if they're going to be one-on-one with the students. And in this kind of environment where it's very small groups, it's most of the time we can pretty much guarantee that there will be one-on-one, or at some point that they will be alone with students. And to make that happen, they need to go through our full background check process, driver's license and all that, and fingerprints. So that takes a while to do. So we can definitely start looking at volunteers. We're still in the process of trying to figure out what staffing looks like and how many people we will need. Once we get up and running next week, we can definitely start taking a look at what does volunteers look like. We've had some reservation from the risk pool, our insurer, the Washington Schools Risk Management Pool, about volunteers in the daycare program. So we would most likely be looking for people that have had some type of experience in running a daycare or a summer camp, or camp counselors or nurses. I know that some parents in the community who are nurses have volunteered their help. So we may wind up asking them after this first week or so to start the process of filling out all that volunteer paperwork. But we're not opposed to volunteers from the community helping run this program, and eventually we will probably be asking for that. But for now, we really want to try to keep it in-house, just so that we have all of known quantities to start with.
So to this, the second piece about for families who will not qualify under the verification process as first responders or healthcare providers. I know that in some communities, some of the parent groups have been working together to support each other in childcare. Even hearing some staff members who have talked about how their families have shared responsibility across their homes by, I'll take Tuesday, Wednesday, you take Thursday, Friday kind of piece. If any families are considering that, we strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to consider all of the pieces of the social distancing that have been put in place by public health, groups small, keep that distance apart from each other. You know, our parks aren't closed. Students can be outside, and so they can certainly do some things outside that might keep that distance, and perhaps one parent is supervising that while another is taking a break. So in that way, for us to set that up, again, it is against the advice of our risk management pool, but we know it's happening in the community, so we just encourage folks to make sure they're following the practices to really stop the spread of this disease and really control it.
Okay, thank you. Maggie Tai, any questions or comments? Okay, don't go out. I see you shaking your head. Brian, any questions or comments?
I'm good.
David? If you're shaking your head, I can't see you on my screen.
Deborah, I did just want to say thank you
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
everyone. That's okay. I had forgotten to unmute myself. I did want to just say thank you to everyone in the district who's been working so hard to get this set up. It's so critical to let parents keep working at this time when the healthcare system's under so much stress. So thank you for doing this.
David? Nope. Okay. And Tam?
No, thank you.
Okay. Donna, back to you.
So the next priority that has been stated actually from the very beginning is about graduation. So I know Megan picked up her pencil. She is ready to take notes. And just so the board knows, we will post this whole slide deck on the website as a resource. And we are participating in a briefing tomorrow with the city as well. So we plan on going through these pieces at that time also. So Fred is going to talk through what we know and the work that we are working through. And again, it's day 4. We don't have all the answers. We do continue to hear about waivers and ways to support our students. I know our high school has already done some deep diving into the actual who of this will impact when it comes to our students. So Fred.
One of the first emails I fielded as the schools, we hadn't even closed yet, but others were contemplating, was from a community member already asking about whether or not our graduation ceremony would be impacted. And I think that speaks just to how important some of these events are. And when I see Megan here in the room today and think about her as a representative of all those seniors, our first statement is our graduating class of 2020 is going to graduate. And we don't know what that's going to look like. And the actual ceremony, Megan, and to you and all of your peers, but our goal is we are committed to making sure that you graduate. We have a work group in motion right now. We've already had early discussions. We have a full-scale conversation on Friday morning. It involves principals from the high school, teachers, counselors, district administrators, gathering information from OSPI, from our own classes. We are, as Superintendent Kolosky mentioned, we are digging down to the individual student level, taking a look at everyone's transcripts, everyone's credits, grades, where they are in process. So each student will be analyzed, and then we will be working with those students on what graduation requirements look like. We hope to receive some additional information tomorrow or Friday from OSPI about graduation, but we know we're considering those testing requirements. With SBA canceled, we have some students who we're hoping to be able to test again and use that to fulfill their graduation requirement. So without that opportunity, what does it look like for them? We're thinking about students who may not have been passing a certain course right now when school was closed. And so how do we make sure we can get those students back on track? In the truly unfortunate situation would be if school doesn't resume on the 27th of May or April, and it's even later. So all considerations are on the table, but I go back to our mantra, and that's students are the priority, and our graduates are right up there. We also have secondary concerns. We'll get into a few others, but I think they're appropriate to hear as I look to Paul, who represents the juniors, who are starting to think about SAT and ACT, and some have taken them and some haven't. Thinking about our students enrolled in dual credit courses and what does that mean for them, as well as AP testing. Because things like AP testing, SAT, ACT are national considerations, we are working with other districts to advocate our interests, so we're not doing it alone, but rather have consortiums of districts working together. And the dual credit is an ongoing conversation with our partners at Bellevue College, Renton Tech, others, so that we can move in a way that's going to give our students the most flexibility during this time. So that's a general overview of that. We will have more updates. I know there's a scheduled board meeting for next week. I assume we'll have more updates along the way there, but that's what I know as of right now.
Any questions? Maggie Tai?
Nope.
Nope. Sorry, Brian?
I'm good, thank you.
David?
Yeah, thank you on this. This is a good list. I am concerned that other states, both New York and California, look pretty much assuming school will not restart this year. And so they're planning for that type of situation as well. And so I think we should consider what that type of worst case scenario is. And not only do we then have the senior issue, but all the lower grades, especially in the high school, will need a catch-up situation too to be thought about at that point too. So yeah, this is a very tricky one. I'm also wondering, are there any third parties we could enlist to help with this? So those would be my questions. Thank you.
Tam?
Similar on the same vein as David. I have no doubt that we will accomplish all of these things in making sure that our graduates, our seniors will graduate and they will be able to meet the standards given the certain situation. My larger concern is actually, even though we are able to graduate them, is the content knowledge that's being lost. And as they're moving forward, right, to higher ed, I guess part of this whole working group is how do we make sure that we pull in the higher education people to talk about how does in their first year, they may need to reassess how they are teaching for this cohort of students. So even though logistically we can handle this, but the reality is they're going to lose content knowledge and the transition won't be so seamless if across the board universities are not also making adjustment for their freshmen. Then also with the graduation, those are things that we unfortunately can't control and we don't know where it's going to be, but most likely if things are trending the way it is, we might not have the same graduation ceremony as we're used to. And so I guess I'm going to ask the students to ask their friends to think about what is meaningful to you. So I think this is time where the board, the administration are very open to hearing from students. What would be meaningful for students to signify, right, their kind of milestone, to celebrate their achievements and really to provide closure for them to make the next step into adulthood. And so I think everybody's very open to seeing, beside the traditional graduation ceremony, what other ways can we do to support you in celebrating this wonderful, achievement that you guys have been working on so hard. So that's it.
My only question, well, it's more of a general question. I'll wait till later. Okay, Donna, anything more?
Just one other thing that I would add around the graduation, just taking the board back to the priorities. We'll get into the teaching and learning here in a moment and kind of talk about some of the other students, why we pay particular attention to graduation in this particular presentation is when we submit our plan to OSPI per the governor's requirement, as well as Superintendent Reichdahl. We know our seniors, it's going to have to look different from our preschoolers all the way through our juniors, thinking about our adult transition students. And we have some students who are in the end of their adult transition year, and they may be missing out on opportunities. So we have lots of students who are on our mind. The reason why the spotlight's on graduation is because that was a specific ask from the governor to the superintendents.
So next up is what has been called Staff Matters, and that has double meaning. I'm going to let Erin address this. There was, it was reiterated by Superintendent Reichdahl in his conversations with the superintendents that assurances for our public school district employees that pay, how will they be paid, will they be paid? The assurance has been yes through this closure time through April 24th. And at this time, we have been working really closely with our MIEA. We want to thank them for their leadership partner as we worked through some of these really challenging pieces as the work is changing so dramatically. Erin, would you please go ahead and go through our staff matters section?
Perfect. And as Donna noted, it really, our staff do matter. And we've been very careful and intentional when meeting with staff. And I'd say both, we've been very fortunate. We have true partners on the other side. So the district and MIEA, which is they represent both our classified bargaining unit and our certificated bargaining unit, have been working very collaboratively to address sort of the changes in working conditions, working remotely, doing childcare. There's a lot of big changes in this unprecedented time. All the while, as we're coming up with solutions, we've been keeping in mind the guidance provided by the state public health authorities, the CDC, and OSPI, because our goal has to be to keep staff and students safe. I think I touched on that earlier when we were talking about the childcare issue. And in our discussions, we continue to both prioritize the interest and safety of all of our students, and that really is all here at Mercer Island. We really mean that when we say that. And so that's been at the core of our discussions and what our work going forward will look like. Some of the key staffing issues that we've essentially resolved is that compensation, is that all staff on letters of assignment or contracts will be paid and receive their benefits as though the staff had worked all the calendar contract days between when we went out on March 13th and April 24th. Existing supplemental contracts, so that's our athletic coaches. We have staff on supplemental contracts because they participate in principal's cabinet and that kind of thing. They will also get those supplemental contracts through April 24th, 2020. Because of the guidelines from the Public Health Department and the CDC, all staff, if possible, have been directed to work remotely. And I have to give a shout out to our tech department and to our administrators. And frankly, all of our staff are being so flexible and looking for creative ways to have that occur and even positions that we would typically think would have to occur at a school site. They really have done a fantastic job. I also want to recognize the efforts of our essential staff who still come in every day because their work cannot be done remotely. That's our custodians, our maintenance and operations staff, our administrators, our transportation staff, and staff who might have to support district provided childcare, which could be educators, nurses, and even some of our other certificated staff. In terms of work duties, all of our employees are being encouraged to perform their duties consistent with their current job description and as necessary to support the state mandated activities of food service provision, childcare provision, and that type of thing. But again, we have to be cognizant that due to the special circumstances of the school closures, working to conditions and locations are going to be different, and we have to be flexible in terms of what that looks like, and it might vary between people, even doing the same task. I think I want to emphasize that staff morale is important, and really we have a bunch of staff, and I'm getting emails all the time, I know Fred is, and other leaders in the district, that they're just disappointed not to be with our students, and they're trying to look for ways to help to find solutions. They're eager to participate in building the next steps for provision of supplemental learning and meeting the needs of all of our students. They understand there's limits on what we can do right now, and we're trying to find solutions that work within the health guidelines we have, the legal guidelines we have, but they also understand that we need to be sensitive to first addressing the state identified priorities of food service and childcare, and then on how to support our seniors, and finally on how to support all students with access to supplemental materials and continued learning opportunities. So it's really in that order, and they understand that. And to be honest, the staff want to be with kids, they want to help kids, and they're just trying to be flexible and are just as eager as we are to try to come up with solutions that work within all of the sort of strictures that we have.
Any questions? Maggie Tai? No?
No.
Sorry, I can't. Brian?
No, I'm good, thank you. But a huge thank you to everybody on staff, and especially our administrative team for being flexible and really working through this. You're an amazing group, and we have an amazing community of staff, and this goes from everyone from maintenance and drivers to teachers to our coaches and beyond. So just thank you to everyone for your consideration and your care for our families and students.
David?
Yeah, I'll echo Brian's thanks as well. One couple of questions. As we think about vulnerable people, we're also giving and staff who are members of that group. We also are considerate about their immediate families as well. Is that right? Not just their immediate vulnerabilities.
That's correct.
Can I
And they,
just to answer that, David, yes, there's actually been some of our leadership team who frankly, I had to be, it's not my style as a leader, but I've had to be directive and tell them that due to considerations within their family, that I expect them to be working remotely.
yeah, that's great. Thank you. And then the other question would be around our revenue. I know April is a tax time frame, and there's a lot of talk about tax holidays, potentially even within King County. If there's a property tax holiday, that might impact school district revenue. I know we've got a fund balance that allows us to carry through times like this. I just want to make sure we're good with 1 or 2 months of delay around this. If we don't get our revenue from the state for 1 or 2 months, we can pick that up as needed.
So I'll jump in first and then let Ty kind of finish it up. I know we've had, particularly those of you who continued on the board, not particularly so much our newest board directors, but David, I know you've been part of ongoing conversations regarding fund balance and and the need for that emergency part of a fund balance. And here it is knocking at our door. And so Ty and I have been having that conversation several times a day as we look at this, and are confident in those April 24th dates that if for some unforeseen reason, even if things are delayed, emergency dollars that we are going to be eligible to apply for, if those are delayed, how is our cash flow going to be? And a lot of that is based on having that fund balance that is going to support us during this time. Ty, can you elaborate?
Excuse me. So for as much as it's worth, OSPI has said that apportionment dollars will continue to flow. They're not quite sure about the federal dollars. We get property tax collections in April and October. If there were to be a tax holiday pronounced, we would still get the vast majority of the April influx of dollars because that's the October to April collections. So they've been collecting it and holding on to it for a while. If we're looking at the outer range of tax collections, it could be a problem, as well as the federal dollars. I've been working with my staff to start looking at how do we start tracking all of the money that we're spending on these new initiatives. The summer feed program, we got guidance from the state yesterday about how to account for that money. We've gotten, we're putting together new set of budget codes and programs for the daycare program. We're going to be tracking all of the technology expenditures, the hotspots, the iPads, the cell phones, all of these things. We're already tracking the custodial overtime that went in beforehand. So we're taking a very close look. One thing that we do need to consider is that while there's no students in the building, there's no activity. And that, you know, we can continue to pay our staff through the 24th because of that fund balance. Partially because we don't have to pay the fuel costs of moving the buses. We're not going to have the travel expenses. We're not going to have a lot of the conference expenses. There's a lot of things that we would normally do that we're not doing right now. So that allows us to divert that money into paying for our staff and helping pay for these programs.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. And I guess this is the emergency we never considered when thinking about fund balance, and this might be longer than we expected as well.
Yeah.
A final question would be, as we're thinking about new learning opportunities for our graduating seniors and our other kids, are we thinking about turning those into kind of formal stipends and other types of positions like that as people go through that work? And can we consider making those type of opportunities available to people?
So I can respond to that in terms of compensation for staff members who are working on ongoing support of students, seniors, and otherwise during the rest of the year. Right now, I mean, the expectation is that staff are working, they are still being paid. So there is not a need to be creating supplementals or stipends for them to be doing that work, because that work can be done within their contracted day, and it's just different work than they would normally do. So whether or not standing in front of their AP math class, they are instead trying to find solutions and working collaboratively with the state, other leaders, our administrative team to figure out solutions that will work for our students. So while we're building that, they're doing work, it's just different work, and they're already being paid to be working. I don't know if that answers your question.
To a certain degree, it does. I guess the new learning styles that are being come up with for distance learning are different than teaching in front of a room and a whiteboard. And I assume that there will be leaders or a technology team a technology and learning team that will be set up to lead that and then help educate everybody else on how to utilize that, whatever services they come up with. I guess I'm wondering if that's being formed, and if you know, that the staff have stipends for that new learning style that they have to develop.
And excuse me, those things are happening. Groups are being formed and staff are working, but there's not a separate compensation for that. I don't know, sorry. Because that is just a different type of work than what they would otherwise be doing. So they're already being paid to perform an educational job. And yes, it's new learning. Yes, it's now potentially educating staff on how to reach students instead of students directly, but it falls within sort of the newly contemplated or newly forming, I guess, job duties. And we're all still being paid, which, you know, I think that's we have to be mindful that we, as public employees, if we are being paid, we have to be providing a service to the public. And right now that's the service that needs to be filled. And we're very fortunate to have staff who are willing to do that work and able to do that work. So it's just work duties are changing. Now, if it's going to result in vastly different work, I suppose there could be additional like time carded pay. I don't think it would be a supplemental if it meant that they had to do some crazy weekend work to learn a new tool. But it's just, and I'm sorry if maybe I'm not being clear, but really it's just the nature of our work is changing in this time, and we are all being flexible to ensure that we can do what's best for students, because we're all being paid. And just because I'm not, as I said, standing in front of an AP class and working with them directly, and instead I'm developing new ways to reach them, I'm still being paid to do that task of trying to support this public educational system.
Thank you very much. I understand that. Thank you, Erin.
No problem.
And we are going to move into the teaching learning component, David, where Fred represented, and that might answer some of those questions as well.
As we move over there, you know, just an aside, just thinking about what the world has looked like within the school district for the last little bit. Director D'Souza, when you asked about, you know, fund balance and, you know, where are we with that? Just a little, and this isn't about, oh, our poor administrators or whatnot, because we knew what we signed up to do and we're here each and every day. But I had to go back and double check. First conversation that started via text this morning with Donna to us was at 5:02, and it was all about fund balance, cash flow, what's going on with things, and we were up and running right away. So all these issues are on our mind, and we're happy to do it. It's what we signed up for. But I hope that the public knows that this team is working full steam ahead. So moving into teaching and learning,
Just for me to add on.
She doesn't always do that.
I don't always do that, but just to add a little a lens to it. Last night we were still communicating this cabinet team. I believe it was about 8:43. I finally sent at least my final message that said, I need to close my eyes now. I'm going to try and get at least 4 hours sleep. So these guys are the last people I talk to at night, it feels like, and the first people I talk to in the morning. And I know President Lurie has said a few times about the 24/7, and yes, it is. It is right now. And to Erin's point, the work is definitely different, but it is still the work that we are keeping at the forefront of our students and how to support them. So, and we know that our staff is hopefully being patient, taking a breath, as we really hope that our community is as well. Really, this is a pause week, and it's only been 4 days that students have been home with you. Parents, it's not even a full spring break yet. So please, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to keep that in mind. that's some advice I've received from some community members and some emails about, remember, this is a marathon. We've got a lot to do, and it's going to change during this time as well. So now we're going to move into teaching and learning.
Dawn, can I interject and provide my feedback before we go into the teaching and learning for the teachers?
Certainly.
Okay. I was wondering, I'm so glad that we're committing to make sure that all of our teachers and staff are paid. And I was wondering during this time, I know that even though we're paying them, sometimes their spouse may not be working, or because they have to take care, they have additional health concerns that may be financially, a challenge for them. So I wonder, as we're moving forward on this is a long-term kind of thing, how do we make sure that we have additional support, concrete support to help those things? And also, how are we being intentional in about providing more mental health support to our staff? I know that they probably have services that they can access, but during this time, it's really important to be proactive in making sure that we check in with them regularly and give them the resources to, to go through this, because we need them healthy, physically and emotionally, mentally, so that they can best serve our students. So I hope that's a commitment as well.
And I can respond sort of twofold with respect to your first question about spouses and other family members and the impact that this has on their ability to be income earners. Our ability to address that income loss is very limited because we're just doing the best we can to keep the people we have paid and whole. And fortunately, as I think Ty mentioned, we have a fund balance, so we were able to come out early and commit to that to give some assurances to our staff. So at least having the stability of one income will help the overall well-being of those families. I think by and large, like we have at the table with the union and in the daily conversations that we're all having in these work groups, it's committed to really being as flexible as possible in our working arrangements, so that those who can't be at work because they fit into one of those categories, or they have an immediate family member that they're in close contact with who is at risk, that they can still be actively participating. I don't want there to be any confusion. Our staff want to work. This is their passion. That's why they're here. And they want to know how they can help the greater good, and they are looking for ways to do that. And that goes from the, superintendent all through all of our teachers, our paraeducators, our bus. I mean, I have bus drivers volunteering to drive goods around for the city. Like, how can we help in this situation? So we have a bunch of helpers, and so I think that's good. And again, it was a shout out to the technology team. We've been looking for creative ways to keep everybody engaged and working, be it through PD, if that's the only option for them right now, or working on these work groups to come up with the creative solutions. With respect to the mental health of our staff, all of our staff have access to Employee Assistance Program, which has 6 free mental health consults that can be done remotely. And they're encouraged, it's a benefit that we offer, and we encourage them to access that. So here's a plug if any staff are listening. And I know, at least from the many meetings that I've been in, we've been intentional about taking a pause, because we are all working, burning the candle at both ends and working very hard. And to take a pause, remind us why we are here, that we're here for the students, and that at the end of the day, we are doing our absolute best, and that we may make mistakes, and giving each other permission to make those mistakes and learn and grow, and permission to, sometimes say, I need 4 hours of sleep, so I need to go to bed now, even though you're a night owl and you still want to be working at 11:59 at night. I'm tired, and just giving each other permission for that. So I think that's something that we're all being very intentional about throughout the entire system. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
I think there's a great example, as well as one member of our leadership team has set up a mindfulness moment remotely, where every one of our leadership team can dial in if they so choose, and she will lead a moment of mindfulness and contemplation, and hopefully rebalancing and setting for the team. I also know that our site administrators have been in communication with their teams and members of their teams, and I think part of the stress for everyone right now is, as Erin was saying, we have a lot of helpers and everyone wants to do something, and it's very hard that the best doing you can do right now is to really basically shelter in place and keep yourself and your family healthy. That's really hard for doers to do. So we are reaching out and looking at ways to have those same kinds of meetings with our staff so that collaboration will be there in the remote setting. So definitely paying attention to that, just as we do when we're not in this situation that we're in.
Any other questions from board members on the teaching and learning? Oh, wait, sorry, staffing. All right, Donna or Fred?
Fred's going to take this one on the teaching and learning side, and Dr. Booby is on as well, so she might be chiming in too.
Yep, and we also have Jamie Prescott, Director of Learning Services, on the line, so I'll be asking them to lead some of these as well as we move along. Director D'Souza, you had asked about, what are some of the teams that we formed, and in alphabetical order, just to give you as a board a sense of the work going on behind the scenes. We're forming teams around the following categories: childcare, communication, employee work expectation and experiences, food services for students, graduating seniors, professional development, progress reports, reporting with grades and report cards, supplemental learning for students, and supporting students with special services. So each of those teams have facilitators as well as leadership members, and now we're starting to pull together our other members of the staff as it goes along. So we are putting together teams so that we can carry out the work. As the community hopefully saw, we did publish resources broken out by the different levels, K-5, the middle school, and the high school. That is our first push out. We now have a team that will be addressing these online resources through enhancements and other additions as this evolves. So that's just our first installment that we put forth. I would like Dr. Booby and Director Prescott to talk a little bit about equity and access for all, around what are the conversations happening locally and nationally with special education 504s, and then various programs as we go.
Jamie, did you want to chime in first?
Nope, go for it.
Dr. Swan Booby here. As we have been working, the whole team, all of Learning Services, the admin team, have been trying to keep equity and access in our lens at all times. I've been actively monitoring the OSPI communications from the Special Education Office, the communications from OSEP, which is the Office of Special Education Programs at the federal level, OSERS, the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services communications, and then OCR, the Office of Civil Rights. So we have been monitoring all of their communications and really looking at what we're providing through that equity lens.
In terms of, Swank, if you wouldn't mind just kind of talking about what are the banks of the river that you're kind of hearing right now as we start contemplating our next moves. I know community, and I know the board is interested just in terms of, we're at the supplemental stage right now. Are you hearing about any changes to the banks of the river around what we can or can't provide as a public school system, or what are some of the equitable conversations taking place?
Sure. So equitable conversations are both on the Office of Civil Rights side, which falls into our 504 and our Title II of ADA, as well as the IDEA side of the house, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So as we're looking at providing resources online, we have to ask ourselves, do all of our students and maybe their parents have the ability to access those materials? Do our students with disabilities, do they have the equipment at home if they need screen readers or alternative mice or keyboards, or are those kinds of things accessible to them? Is it, and even if that is, are their parents available, or is there someone available to assist them? And then we have students, and I'll take my own son for an example, who's deaf and blind. We have students in our district that run the gamut of disabilities. So as we are looking at what we're providing, all of us are asking us these questions: is can we reach all learners? And and other districts are also struggling with this, and other people are weighing in. University of Michigan has put on some considerations on what to think about for students with disabilities, but at this point, no one has answers on how to operationalize the conversation.
And Jamie, do you want to add anything from McKinney-Vento, foster care, dual credit, online learning, any updates from there that would be relevant to this conversation?
So as far as McKinney-Vento and foster care students, neighboring districts, everybody has an agreement that to make food and meals accessible to students. Students are able to get food from any nearby. So we've got families who don't necessarily live on the island through McKinney-Vento or the foster care system, whose students can access nutrition in the area in which they live. So we've got agreements with any district where our students are currently living. We had a planning meeting today for supplemental learning. We've got a draft communication ready to go to staff as far as specifics about what can and can't happen in the next few days. We also have a meeting scheduled on Friday with a number of different stakeholders, including teachers, coaches, administrators, district leadership, Dr. Booby, Nova Williams, to address kind of our next steps and what it's going to look like. Hopefully by then we get a little more direction and information about how we could operationalize some of the special needs that we need to provide for students. And, I can't emphasize enough that our teachers, they're jumping at the opportunity to serve on this particular work group because they want more than anything to be able to serve students. They are incredibly concerned about the widening achievement gap for students who are already facing academic challenges. And so they want to address that. There's also the concern of AP tests and assessments and how to prepare students for that, hoping that lobbying with the College Board and national groups will allow some flexibility to allow us time to figure out how to best serve those needs. So there's lots of work going on behind the scenes. We've got the published resources now, and each day our ITCs, our instructional technology coaches, are getting more input and ideas from staff members. I know our high school ITC held a Google Meet with about 40 high school staff this morning, gathering ideas and feedback. Our elementary ITCs are getting daily feedback and input from teachers about things that could be accessible and listed for all students to access. So it's an evolving process. Everybody is anxious for this to take off and figure out where we're going to go. And we're just taking it a day at a time right now.
Excellent. Thank you both for that level. And the board may have other questions. I just want to finish up this portion of the presentation, and we'll take those. Some of the different consultants we work with in and around the region oftentimes remind us that Mercer Island, you have a small size, and that is so beneficial in so many ways. But they said, where you will always struggle is that you're a small district surrounded by the largest districts in the state. So you're a small district with big district expectations. And I've had to remind the team that there are only 6 of us administrators in the whole department, and we're doing all curriculum instruction assessment from preschool through adult transition. We cover all of the federal programs and everything else. So we have to remember, as John Wooden said, we need to play fast, but not get in a hurry. So that's been something we've been trying to deal with. We talked a little bit about grades and credits already with regard to seniors. We're also thinking about that all the way through the system. We're also finishing up the 3rd trimester. Had we been in session this Friday, the 2nd trimester, Paul looks over at me sideways. Thank you for keeping me in check, Paul. We just finished the 2nd trimester, essentially, for our elementary and our middle school. So we are talking as a principal team, along with MIEA and others, about what the reporting period will look like. So more coming on that soon. From a professional learning standpoint, as we are both focused on the teaching and learning of students first, we're also thinking about how to develop our staff. We hope that it doesn't happen, but it's even been alluded to in your conversation, school board, today, that, what if something like this comes back around? Where will we be then? And so portion of this is thinking about how do we think about the future and being nimble as a system. Just today, I'm pleased to announce that we formed a partnership with the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. They're going to give us 3 free months as a school district to their most comprehensive online resources for teachers and staff members to gain professional development. We will also then have access to other forums. So we're really excited about that and what we're going to be able to roll out for our staff as they seek ways to continue keeping their learning journey going as well. We're supporting families in teaching and learning, making technology available for everyone, so that's not a barrier. We had 70 families respond to our survey for technology. 30 of those families picked up technology yesterday. As we speak, between 2 and 4 today, we have another open house where we hope to see the rest of our families come through. They're picking up iPads and hotspots for their homes. Those who can't make it in these 2 days will be having by appointment to make available to our families. We also have a technology support team in place with our instructional technology coaches. We do have those 3 email addresses that we know they've been busy answering questions from families at home. So we encourage the community to keep those emails coming, and we're getting to the emails as quickly as we can. So some next step is we've got to keep the focus on our seniors. We've got to think about what we're starting to call Operation Stay Engaged. That's staff collaboration, bolstering supports for our students and families, and then navigating the political, legal, and educational landscape as it's changing quickly each and every day. So that's kind of the end of the teaching and learning report.
So board directors, that is all of the priorities, and this is the template for the plan that we are going to be submitting to OSPI to say here's where Mercer Island School District is at this time. We've accomplished a lot. I know, again, it feels it's a struggle for everyone because it's a little bit of a hurry up and wait, and it just requires so much patience to not know what exactly is going to happen next. And we thank you in advance for that patience. We will continue to keep our website updated. So as an example, this template, slide deck will go up on the website. Any other documents. We will continue to do this distance and remote work, even with you as a board, communicating electronically. having the discussion about, future meetings and how are we going to handle making sure that everyone's getting the information and being able to provide the input that we want them to be able to give us. But we do ask and remind everyone that it has only been 4 days, and we still have lots to do as we move forward. So, any more questions? I'm sure there's lots on teaching and learning. Deborah?
Sorry, just had to unmute. Meg, question?
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you. Yes, it's a great reminder that it is only 4 days into the shutdown, because I think especially those of us with young kids at home, every day seems like about 10 days right now. So I think it's a helpful reminder. Could Fred talk a little bit about the communications committee that has been set up and what they're planning on doing?
I can. That one's really with our communications director, with Craig Dadinger, the superintendent, cabinet, thinking about every day we're talking, what needs to be released and when, working on all of the different communications that we're trying to provide either to small groups of stakeholders based on need or those full communication pieces coming out to everyone. Also thinking about, is email the right mode? Facebook, what should go on a dialer? We're talking about a dialer soon. I know Donna's been talking about. So it's really thinking about how do we communicate, and then also what languages might we need to think about how we're communicating this, how accessible will these be through translation services. We've been even translating and using our translation services to some degree to communicate with certain stakeholders who have had questions. So it kind of covers the gamut.
Thank you for that. I would encourage you guys, especially if the normal public notice requirements are going to be waived in because of like the emergency nature of some of our meetings and so forth, to communicate as much as possible about what happens at these meetings, because like you guys are presenting all this great stuff and it's nice to actually hear the actual explanation of it and some of the details that aren't necessarily in the slide deck itself. So a lot of people, even though I know the information is out there and it's not that hard to find, like if you were to, for example, let people know, here's a link to the meeting where this was discussed, especially given that it may not be noticed as well as it's been in the past, or as it traditionally is, might be helpful for people to just like hear it and be able to kind of feel like they're getting face-to-face time, even if it's virtual in that regard.
So just like we record our regular meetings where we have it go out on the local TV station, we post that on our meeting website, we are recording this and we'll be able to post this as well. So that gives those who see the slide deck the advantage of listening to the explanation as well, because I agree with you, it's so much more when it's a rich discussion versus just looking at the slides. So
right.
We are trying to really highlight on the website and working through how do we get those community communications out. Another interesting piece that we're collaborating with the city on is doing these briefings where we're broadcasting it on I think it's 21. And we're doing it live, but then it will run on that, just like our regular board meetings do. So kind of old tech, but utilizing it to the best we can. I looked at Megan and she smiled at me because I was also reflecting, I think it was in the wee hours of the morning, about radio. And everybody I know, when you listen to the radio right now, a lot of the broadcasters are saying how they are not in the studio together. There's those who are using their basement studio, so to speak, to do their broadcasting. And I was contemplating what's the potential for our radio station as a communication tool on the island, because it does reach the whole island. So looking for all the different ways that we can over communicate.
Yeah, or over communicating, I think is key, because again, it's not enough to have the slide deck up and then somewhere on board docs, you know, a link to the video archive, or on the website a link to the video archive. If you put the two together, that makes it just that much easier, that it's just one click away. So over communicating, I think, is a great plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. I really want to lean in first and foremost to our policy around mutual respect and civility. And I think this is a time of crisis or high concern. I think we've moved from high concern into crisis. And for a lot of folks who tend to have a lot of control in their lives to suddenly be absent that, I think I'm not surprised that many in our community are looking for any way to have some control or find some control. So I want to lead with our first rule, which is assume best intention, and create space for the mistakes to be made, and for us to be graceful and to provide grace in how we deal with these situations. Just observing conversations happening across our community or in pockets of our community around teaching and learning and engagement. First, I just wanted to reiterate that when we talk about equity, equity is a difficult topic to begin with, but this goes far, far beyond just access to a device and Wi-Fi. It involves languages, it involves abilities, it involves so many complex and layered systems that it can't be simplified down to a one or two choice issue. So I want to remind folks of that who are watching this. I also want to express my concern for families who may be feeling stigma right now, or feel stigmatized through what's happening in community conversations, especially those students and families who may already feel marginalized in our system in accessing services that they need and that their students need. So I want to encourage folks to really think before you type, or think before you communicate, and really make sure that you're taking that into account. Supplemental education is happening, and we're 4 days into this, but there are things available to our families. And I think there's been, in the rush to worry, there's been miscommunication and misinformation put out that nothing exists. And in fact, there are a lot of resources that currently exist, model schedules and materials for students to engage with, apps that can keep them engaged, and suggested periods. And that has been around since our last regular board meeting, that those were going to be rolled out and are continuing to be rolled out. And then I just wanted to highlight that when we're talking about supplemental services or remote learning or situations like this, we also have to look at what can be considered mandatory. If we're getting into grading, if we're getting into tracking, if we're getting into these things and tracking attendance and stuff, this creates a system that would require mandatory attendance. And with so many different families experiencing so many different aspects of concern right now in dealing with this through family members' health, that I'm not sure how any of this could become mandatory and be able to truly serve all 4,300 plus students in our district. More than anything, I want to encourage folks, as you're taking this information and viewing this and talking about it in the community, to go back to assume best intentions. Know that I assume that and know that the administration and the staff and everyone in our district is working hard to ensure that every child is able to move forward or be engaged in a meaningful way. And so it's no longer about simply being compliant, but truly engaged. And that work is happening and ongoing. So please share that that's happening. Share space for everyone to be considered as these systems are being built. And I'm not sure if it was Maggie Tyre, who was it that might have mentioned this, that this plane is being built in the air as we're flying. And so I just want to tip my hat to everyone in the district who is working so hard to build this aircraft, and also to all the families and community members who are being patient and providing the space and the grace for the aircraft to be built. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. David?
Well said, Brian. I do agree. This is like fixing an airplane in flight. It's pretty difficult. I think the presentation that we just got was very well done and really highlights the key set of priorities we should have as a district and educational institution. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate that leading the 400 some staff in this direction doesn't happen overnight, and having clear priorities like this makes it much easier. So thank you to the administration team for making this happen and presenting it very clearly and very succinctly. I think this should be very clear set of standards and priorities for our community to understand as well. And it includes all the needs I've seen in the email that have come through and does seem to address that. I appreciate also that it is very difficult to make that happen in this week, in our first week of closure. So I appreciate it'll happen over the coming weeks. One question regarding supplemental learning. I'm wondering, how do we include third-party content in that? For example, Island Books has workbooks available. They're thinking about story time and online videos of book readings and potentially online book clubs that people could, students especially, could belong to. There are other online opportunities that we're a part of as well. Do they get included in the supplemental learning? Can they get included in the supplemental learning? Is there a way to take advantage of third parties in this space? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, an elementary administrator myself had a FaceTime conversation yesterday about what would be our ability to create videos of one of the favorite things that we like to do, which is read aloud to children. And so could we do read alouds that could then be posted along with these other supplemental activities, which we have one of our coaches who is all ready to go with some videos. In fact, we've even contemplated, City has offered the video equipment that is in the chamber. You know, of course, we'd still have social distancing, but we would be able to use that as well. And again, push out potentially on the local TV channel. So certainly, yes, we are looking at all those kinds of options and linking those specific options onto the resources that are already there. We will reach out to them and hope that the entities will reach out to us as well, so we can coordinate that.
I also,
Thank you.
can I just add one piece? We have been flooded with companies and vendors and all kinds of groups saying, oh, we've got solutions for you. And sometimes it gets exciting and you think about what the possibilities could be. And something that we are wanting to be very cognizant of is not introducing new platforms and new material that students don't have any exposure to. And so right now, we have been carefully selective about which apps and which different sites we're using, so that at least in the short term, we aren't asking students to learn new platforms and new apps and programs along with new learning in a new structure.
That sounds great. Thank you. David, did you have anything? Were you done with that last question? No.
Yes, I'm done.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Thank you.
Tam.
Okay. This question is for Sue-Ann. When you were in, when you're monitoring these conversations at the state and national level about equity, do they talk anything about different strategies beyond online strategies?
No, there are no solutions that they're suggesting to us other than for each district and state to be creative in how they're providing, whether they're providing education to replace school days or whether they're supplementing education. But they are very adamant that the research around online education for students with disabilities is shows that it is not adequate. There was a meta-analysis done with over 1,000 online studies that just shows that it can't reach all learners.
Okay, thank you. And I'm coming, even though as a board member, I'm informed by myself as an educator and as a social worker. And I would say I'm a little bit frustrated that I think the conversation has been solely focused on online education. And when we talk about equity, really the reality is equity is recognizing that students have different needs, and then how are we committed to meeting all of their needs through different strategies. And so online learning might be one component of that larger strategy. And so instead of just really having a yes/no kind of conversation, we should really be thinking larger in how do we meet our students who have more challenges. And we start with them from the very beginning to think, how can we address that, right? But then it doesn't have to be purely an online strategy. And that's where I feel the conversation has really limited people and have made it harder for the district to move forward. And yes.
No, continue on, sorry.
So that's where, you know, as we're talking about, and I know that with OSPI, they do, they put recommendation, but as we're going up further, there's conversations like, well, local district has control of how they implement it. And so I think there's been a lot of kind of everybody is waiting for someone. And I don't know if OSPI is willing to be very explicit about really exploring different, more comprehensive strategy. And so that's kind of been where my frustration is at, where the conversation has mainly been stuck at this yes online or no online kind of conversation. And then also as regard to communication, I guess because the nature of my work, I'm always about how do we improve the system. And so I'm always, I am comfortable of hearing when people come in and they express their frustration. So I see a lot of these emails from parents as not as being troublesome, but more so that they're frustrated and that they are looking for answers. And even though we have given them answers, but maybe we're not giving them the answers in a certain way that they is best absorbed by them. So it's always, I think, good for us to think about when people are writing in to express their concerns and frustration, that we really hear that and not, again, kind of get stuck on just responding to the details, but really hear that they want certainty, some sort of certainty that we are moving forward and that we do, you know, recognizing the challenges, but that we're moving forward in making sure that their kids are ready for, you know, the next year. And if the system above us is not giving us that direction, how do we advocate to push forward some of those systems to be supportive, you know, our effort on Mercer Island?
So Tam, I appreciate your comments. We are in our spring break / pause week as we are contemplating all of these answers. I will say, I'm not sure the board is hearing from the families that I've gotten several emails this week just saying, thank you for your communication. Thanks for your patience. You know, I do have some questions. So I am getting those emails. And then I got one email from a parent of a little one who I'll ask if I can share more specifics with learning services, but her child, an elementary student, created his own schedule for the day and had 6 options of what he could do for PE, and he had all his options that he chose and created, and she helped him write it up and sent it to us with photos of his learning and how he's doing his little experiments at home and what he decided for PE. And it made my day to see how some of our families are really embracing working with their kids, and also now having a new appreciation for what our teachers do with students all day long, every day. So I want to make sure that the board is seeing both sides, and that you are aware that all of our students are first and foremost in our minds, and we're taking this week to really be thoughtful and not just roll something out, and because we don't want to exclude any student. So your point is well taken, Tam. Thank you.
And it's not I'm sorry, and it's not a criticism of what we're doing, but as I think this is the role of the board, is to bring these concerns up that we hear, and from our different background, kind of bring different insight on how people might apply equity. And so there might be a legal application, there might be different, but I think at this point it's more of a how do we hear each other and not already get stuck in certain ways of doing things. And so, yeah, it's not a criticism at all.
Can I just make one additional comment, which is to say that there's all different angles at which to look at the equity piece of it, because there are, even if we had like 100% online schooling, there would be some kids that just could not take advantage of that because they don't have the attention, or they need assistance, or they need the support and the structure of having, you know, a classroom around them, and they're just not going to be able to get that under the current situation, you know, that we have, which is a very abnormal situation. So no matter what, it's a very difficult thing to kind of address the equity piece like across the board. You know, it's sort of like you're going to win some and lose some, and some kids are going to get more behind if you do it this way, and other kids are going to get more behind if you do it the other way. So I do trust that people are working hard on trying to make the best determinations about that. I also wanted to echo that this is a really great reminder of how much our teachers do for our kids, and of how much the structure and the routine of school provides for our kids. You know, my own youngest, who is 7, I started out with like a whole schedule of what I wanted her to do at home to kind of keep up with her learning. And she very quickly overruled that and said she wanted to stick to the schedule that they have at school, including recess at recess time, lunch at lunchtime. And our little neighboring kids are all doing the same thing. And so the kids all go outside and play in their separate yards at recess time and yell over the fence to each other, you know, which is both sad and sweet at the same time. So just appreciating how much school means to kids, and you know, how eager they are to get back to it once that's possible. So thank you for what you're doing.
Tam, did you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Donna, you're done with your presentation, or is there anything else you want to add?
We're done. We are open to any other questions, and we've been all taking notes on the suggestions from all of you. Just to tap on one little thing more to Director Din's comments, along with what Sue Ann was talking about with our students and online doesn't work for everyone. I want to make sure that people know, particularly for our youngest learners, it is called K-5 Online Supplemental Activities and Resources. There are lots of things in there that aren't done online. We actually acknowledge on that platform that we have concerns about kids being on screens all day too. So here's some other things that you can build into your child's schedule. And then I would just like to say to Director Tucker, thank you so much for that absolutely wonderful story that is about how our kids are wanting to still have recess at the same time. The hardest part of our work right now is that we don't get to see kids, and they are the priority. So that created a wonderful visual for all of us as educators. So thank you.
Sorry, can I just since I had raised some questions early on about the resolution, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who responded to my concerns and explained things that some aspects that I hadn't considered, and I'm much more comfortable with it now. So I can support it now, but I do have some little small changes that I wanted to propose. So if this is the right time for that, I could go ahead and do those, or I can wait.
I want to keep going through the general big picture, and then just, I mean, make any suggestions you want, but keep in mind that it was pulled from WASDA. So it doesn't mean that we have to do exactly what they say, but just.
It's minimal. It's small stuff.
So, your questions have been answered with regards to your concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Brian, do you have any other questions, concerns, points you want to make with regards to the resolution?
No, I don't. I just have one update at the very end of the meeting with LegRep, but I'm great with this. Thank you.
David?
I am fine. Thank you.
And Tam?
I do want to make a thing on, I feel like there's a tone somehow, somewhere that, so I guess resolution and I apologize, I lectured for 3 hours this morning, so my brain is a little bit, I've used all my words already. So I understand the need to really give the administration ability to really be flexible in their work during this time. But I guess the current way that we're operating as a board and with the superintendent, I wonder how what we have been doing have, I guess, interfered in that process. Because, and if you can give me more specific examples on how this might play out, so I would understand more, because I feel like leading up until now, and even until now, we have not, and I don't want people to assume that there has been an oppositional kind of relationship where we have been limiting the administration's ability to move forward, because personally, I have not felt that way. And so I wonder how this resolution, beside the contracting ability, will further expedite their work.
So I can respond to some of your questions, Director Din. First of all, it gives us flexibility if there's some urgent demand upon districts to, for example, convert a school into a COVID-19 like shelter or something like that. So it just gives us more flexibility to respond to that. We are limited, so I think there was earlier concerns in terms of what does this actually enable us to do. And it's really, it enables us to respond from the direction we're getting from state level agencies. It's not just that we go off and do whatever we think is in the best interest of the district. That is still very much a board oversight. It doesn't destroy that. It just allows us to be more nimble in terms of a response. The other thing that it does, there was some reference to the sort of Open Public Meetings Act and getting feedback and public comment through an electronic format instead of having people come in. And that's just, our policy currently says that public can come to meetings in person to present public comments. So unless we address that, that is still the case. And that would be inconsistent with the public health and CDC guidelines, because it's entirely possible we could have 30 people showing up at a board meeting to try to give public comment to you who are dialing in. And so it just sort of enables us to change that format as we need to go. I want to emphasize just to the public who are still listening or may be listening, there certainly hasn't been conflict or antagonism between the board and anybody within the district. I think this is just a vehicle that enables the district to be nimble in case what is already an unprecedented time becomes more unwieldy, and we need to act quickly. I think that we would try to involve the board. I'm speaking a little bit, I'm a little bit over my skis, so I'm virtually looking to my superintendent there in the offices. But I mean, I think our commitment is to keep the board informed when at all possible, and not make decisions without first informing the board. I know that's always our priority. We communicate with you, I think at this point, at least daily, if not more, at the cabinet level. So this document really just enables us to be flexible and allows us to suspend certain policy things, specifically around our meetings and public participation, because without doing that, then we have to have a place where public can be giving comment. And I think if you recall, we sent out communications through emails and in the posting, it's just asking the public to not come in, but this actually says, look, here's this alternative thing going forward. So at this point, we've asked they not come in, but this now makes it, we're now accepting public comment this other way, which is not currently captured in our board policy. So that's really what this does. It just allows us to be flexible. But it's not sort of a blank check, for lack of a better term, to go out and do anything under the sun. It still has to be in response to state level guidance and directive.
And I think to Erin's point, this certainly, this resolution does allow superintendent and the administration team to have some of that flexibility and nimbleness, but it also allows you as a board to have some of that flexibility and nimbleness, whether it's related to one of your specific policy as to how you're being able to continue to do the work that we're engaged in as a team as well.
Okay, no, that was very helpful to break it up apart like that. And then also, so I guess these 3 points I would probably be comfortable with. One, I don't see an end date in here. And so what is expected? And then, so as I'm going through this again, it is not about our current working relationship, but when I look at policies and things, I'm always looking at system. And so it doesn't matter if whoever is in this position, right? So 1, is there an end date? And 2, you know, on the page 2 where it says the superintendent will consult with the board as feasible and appropriate and timely report. Like I trust the superintendent to do that, but again, when we write this policy, I, for, you know, as a voice to, you know, from the community, I would like to be able to, that I would like to narrow that down a little bit more to be like weekly or whatever, but then this is kind of vague for me. And 3, we have to still, like as Erin said, if there is still a way that public can still provide their feedback. So those are kind of my 3 points.
Yeah, Director Din, I can respond to, first of all, and I don't know what page it's on, it's difficult for me to see, and I apologize, but there is a duration limit. So it's the duration of the governor's order of beginning March 13th, and any subsequent orders continuing or reestablishing school closures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's very limited in terms of when we are dealing with this issue, and this issue is framed by the governor's order and that duration. So that's the duration sort of piece of it. And I think by being, I mean, you're correct, it doesn't give you a specified, we will communicate to the board every day, every week, etc. But it says as feasible. And I think that also, I mean, and I don't want to be alarmist, but our ability to communicate is always subject to the proper functioning of our utilities districts and all of those types of things, especially when we just don't know what the state of the world is going to be. And so it's giving us some flexibility. And I think that's necessary at this point in time. But I don't think that at least the district, and I think you recognize in that your own comments, has ever shown anything other but regular and the commitment to regular and timely communication with the board. And I don't see why this pandemic would change that. And I think that's been evidenced by the fact that we have been regularly communicating despite a flurry of very unprecedented activities. So I'd hesitate, if you put in the resolution that we must communicate once every 32 hours or 24 hours, that's now a mandate. And if we're in the middle of dealing with a crisis and setting up an emergency shelter, that may not be feasible and would take us away from the work that we're being asked to do for public health purposes. So I caution about putting in too many, too rigid a restriction there. And I guess ask you to trust that your district will continue to inform the board appropriately.
No, I appreciate that, Erin, and I think it's a balance because if we are in an emergency crisis situation like that, and if you don't have, I mean, that is where the board will probably need to be more involved. It's not something that will just sit and wait for you to respond. And so it's not about limiting your ability, but how do we come to like a point where it is during this time, right? It is more feasible, and there is, you know, as part of one of our role is like check and balance. So like I say, the nature of the job that I do, it's not a personality thing. It is when I set up systems and policy, it is regardless of who's in it. We're lucky to have wonderful staff members in it. And it's not about, I hope nobody takes it personally, but you know, that's, I guess, my lens in when I create policy is not about my current relationship with folks, but how policies is really making sure that we're comprehensive and balance the district's ability to do their job, but also to make sure that we have are in a position to be responsive to our roles as board directors.
So
I just, I want to address in terms of board, as Brian well knows, when he had some requests last week and very valid, and I hope that they were responded to by me and then action taken pretty much immediately, like within the hour or hour and a half. So I see that as my role in terms of the board. I know, I assume that I talk directly with Donna probably the most in my role right now. Not that everyone doesn't have access anytime they have a question, and I know she encourages that, but just so everyone on the board knows, before, like in terms of setting up this meeting and in terms of whether or not we're gonna have a board, the regular board meeting next week, or if we're gonna modify the agenda in some way, that's all being run through me. And then I certainly notify the board of anything when I feel like it's, I don't want to say important because everything's important, but something that we need to take action on. But any time that if someone is, you know, not getting an update they want to get an update on, I would say go straight to the source, meaning Donna. Anytime that someone feels the need that the board needs to sit down and meet together, this resolution gives us that authority to do it. So just reach out to me and say, I want a meeting and it's about this. It does need to address something specific. That specific thing could be, you know, I feel like I haven't gotten an overall update and I want that, and I want it, you know, and it's not as meaningful in writing. So that's totally valid. What I've, just so you know, what my thoughts are is I've been avoiding setting up anything on a regular basis until things kind of settle a little bit, meaning the nutritional stuff, the childcare stuff. Once we do that, I think your point is very well taken in making sure that we have regular updates, but I just don't know that we're ready to kind of set that timeline. But until that happens, just reach out, and if there's an urgency for a meeting for a specific issue, it will happen. It will happen as soon as feasibly possible.
Hey, Deborah. Oh, wait, am I on mute? No. Hey, Deborah. So my only language change that I was going to propose might go like a little bit of the way towards addressing Director Din's concern. All my other suggestions are just like add a comma here, add a comma here. But in okay, I don't know how to number these. I guess in the be it further resolved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the fifth be it further resolved paragraph, where it talks about consulting with the board. Right now the language is a little wonky, and maybe this is like a legal phrase the way it's written right now, but it says be it further resolved that the superintendent will consult with the board as feasible and appropriate and timely report to the board regarding the emergency closure, blah, blah, blah. I was going to suggest just changing the language a tiny bit and saying as feasible and appropriate and will make timely reports, plural, to the board regarding the emergency closure, et cetera. Like, to me, that's just like a little clearer that like we're going to get, you know, the same frequent reports that we've been getting, like plural reports, you know. The emphasis is a little bit different. Like, I don't know if that helps anybody at all or if it seems unnecessary. Anyway.
So I want to, we're 2.5 hours into our hour-and-a-half meeting. And I know that our administrative team has a lot more to do today. And I want to, if there, just for a lot of times we do things a little bit less kind of do thumbs up, thumbs down, but because of the way that we're meeting, I don't know that that's going to be as effective. So are you making a motion to, are you making a motion?
I guess I'm making a motion to amend that paragraph to just say, and will make timely reports, plural, and the rest of it the same. So that's my motion to amend it in that way.
I'll second it for expediency.
Thank you.
Any discussion regarding that motion?
I'd like to know if it satisfies Tam's needs.
For that one, to know that it's yes, that there will be timely reports, yes. And just another legal question is like, once we make this resolution, then it can, I mean, I know we have an end date right here if we don't do any action, but can we also, as needed, we can come back and make another action to resolve this resolution? Is that a problem?
We can address any resolution or modify any resolution anytime we think is appropriate. And just this resolution is based on the governor declaring the state of emergency and closing the schools. And as far, I mean, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but the schools cannot reopen until the governor declares them reopened because he's closed them. So I think that's the clearest timeline that we have on any of this.
That is correct. We do not have the option to be open at this point in time, and will not have that option until the governor gives us that option to be open again.
This is not about whether we reopen or not, but it's really to have a better understanding of the board's ability to still be responsive and to, you know, be part of this conversation. That's to understand the nuances of that. So that satisfied my other concern.
Actually, thank you for that. For the sake of expediency, what would you like to hear my other couple commas I want to add, and then we could vote on all of them at the same time?
Yes, I always love your addition, but before you add your addition, if you guys want this at the very end, if you guys want to be consistent, there's a director word missing from my name on page 3.
Oh,
so that's my only edit. But then yes, Magatai, please go. You're always so good with your edits.
Deborah, is that okay with you?
It's okay, but they need to be done in motion.
Okay.
That's my only, and like I said, we're usually a little bit less formal on it, but I'm just concerned about confusion. So
okay.
let's vote on the language change of the first suggestion, and unless anyone had any questions or comments. So Maggie Ty, if you could just restate the modified language.
Yeah, so motion to modify the language in the 5th, be it further resolved paragraph to add the words will make in front of timely and to add an S at the end of reports. So it will say, and will make timely reports.
Okay. So that is the motion that's been seconded before. Sorry, I'm having issues with my, I need to get back to you all.
President Murray, just so you
Yes.
know, we are taking notes. Staff is taking notes. We don't have a document. First time doing it this way, we don't have an editable, I don't know if that's a Word document up there, but we will take notes. We can then, our intent is to use DocuSign for the actual resolution when it is completed. So I'm thinking as you go through these edits, when they are approved, staff will then go back, make the edits and send the document out for your review, and then the final DocuSign.
Okay, that sounds great.
Great.
And I assume, oh, well, I'm probably the least technical, so, and I can do DocuSign. So someone will speak up if that's an issue. So to do a roll call vote, the motion before the board is to modify the language from the 5th, be it further resolved. Please indicate yay or nay. Maggie Tai?
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Tam?
Yay.
And I vote yay. The motion passes. So the language in the 5th, be it further resolved, is changed. Do I have any other motions, Maggie?
Yes. So I have a motion to add a comma in the first paragraph that begins a resolution because, okay, basically I want to add a comma after emergency actions to make it extra clear that the suspension of district policies and procedures is in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Because right now, the way it's written with no comma, it sounds like we're authorizing the suspension of these policies and procedures, and we're authorizing the implementation of related emergency actions that are in response to the pandemic. And so adding a comma after emergency actions makes it clear that it's both of these things are being done in response to the pandemic. So motion to just add a comma after actions.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Any legal concerns with adding a comma?
No.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe comment that if adding commas or something does not change the intent overarching in a serious way, then I think that it could be approved, and I think administration could make those corrections.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor of adding a comment after actions in the first paragraph? Sorry, roll call. Maggie Tai?
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Tam?
Yay.
And I vote yay. So that passes. Any other motions?
I mean, I have 2 more comments. Can I do them together for the sake of expediency? Is that okay?
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. We're really far into this day, and if unless they actually change meaning, I would rather.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we can let them. We can let them go.
It matters.
It's just it's not going to change the overall impact of this, which is what's important. So I'll let them go. But the little OCD corner of my heart is gritting my teeth for the benefit of the group here. So thank you very much.
We can modify resolutions at any time. We can pull it up and do that. Are there any other motions with regards to resolution number 684 with the approved changes? So bringing the motion to approve to a vote, please indicate by saying yay or nay. Maggie Tai?
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Tam?
Yay. And thank you for all your discussion and willingness to flush this out.
And I vote yay. So the resolution number 684 with regards to the suspension of district policies and procedures and implementation of related emergency actions in response to the COVID-19 pandemic is approved as amended. I can't get back. How do I do this? Oh, wait, there we go. Sorry, just trying to get back to my agenda. So that is the only thing that's on the agenda. I know Brian said you have a legislative update. It's not on the agenda for any updates. Is this something of an urgent nature that we need to add now, or?
It's just a reminder. Just quickly, our director area regional meetings have been canceled. In the spring session through the Washington State School Directors Association, you should have received an invitation in the mail to join over the next 3 weeks our Director Area 2 leaders in the area to receive specific updates from WASDA and to have discussions about this. It's a public meeting, but you do need to register. So check your emails. And the first one is tonight at 6 o'clock. And it'll be tonight, next week, and the following week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Normally I would kind of go around the room, and I know everyone, I know I can speak on behalf of the board, how grateful everyone is to our students, to our administration, to our community for their support during this unprecedented time. Please know that we are always very approachable in any electronic means necessary. The administration building is closed to the public at this time due to safety and the mandate of the governor. If anyone, I want to give an opportunity, but just noting the time, if there's anything that anyone feels like they haven't said, please use this time. And if it's kind of general gratefulness, which is so appreciated, let's kind of wait to when we have another opportunity to talk about those things. So Maggie Ty, is there anything you want to address?
Nope, I'm good.
Brian?
I'm good, thank you.
David?
No, thank you.
Tam?
I'm good.
Donna?
Thank you all, and watch for a document that you will receive electronically with the corrections that will we'll send it out to make sure you all proof it, that it's amended as suggested, and then we will send out the DocuSign to each of you as well tomorrow.
Okay. Are our student directors still present?
They are.
Is there anything you guys would like to say?
No, not particularly.
No.
No? All right, you guys hanging in there?
Yeah, they are.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for attending. Yeah, just thank you for attending, and please feel free to make sure students know they can approach us, they can approach you. I know you guys do that, but if you guys want to send out a letter to the student body, I'm sure that can be arranged, and either just to the high school and middle school students who have Schoology, or if we want to do or if you guys want to do a district-wide letter or note to students, that would be perfectly appropriate and encouraged if that's something you guys feel like you want to do. So based on that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Doing a roll call vote, indicate by saying yay or nay. Maggie Ty?
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Tam?
Yay.
And I vote yay. We are adjourned at 3:38 p.m. Thank you all.
Okay.